Okay, I had to change position because I was getting pretty tired sitting at the same spot. So I moved to my reading setup, my reading space, and I've been reading for the past, I think, half an hour, 45 minutes, and I got to page 42 on Stephen King's 11/22/63. So far, I have to say it is very easy to read because of the large font, so I appreciate that. Although I don't know where the story's going, to be honest. Lots of foreshadowing, lots of hints being dropped, just that not fully everything is revealed. This is my first Stephen King novel, so I do want to give myself a bit of time to read things through. There's a lot of references, and I don't know, it's very different from either Pride and Prejudice like Jane Austen's or Ocean Vuong's On Earth Will Breathe You Gorgeous, because with Ocean Vuong, he uses a lot of references, but in a way that's very visual with similes, metaphors, like I mentioned, all those comparative figures. I don't know, for Stephen King, he uses phrases, and I mean, he compares stuff to other scenarios and to their other situations, and I feel like there's a lot of American and at least Western references that some of them I cannot wrap my head around, so that took a while for me to understand what they're saying and what's been going on. So there's that, but so far I'm enjoying it. Okay, a bit of an update, guys. I got to page 106 of 11/22/63 by Stephen King, and I wanted to do a bit of an update, a bit of a rundown of what I think the story is going. We have, I would say, two main protagonists, at least up until this point that I'm reading. So we have Jack Epping. He is a very ordinary English teacher at high school, and I think they live in Maine. He is somebody who frequents this local diner, and this local diner is run by Al Templeton. And this local diner, one thing that's very different about it, or very unique about it, is that the food is real cheap. I think they're known for something called the Fat Burger, or I think like $1.50. And at that time, even though I think this was back in 2011, that was still like dirt cheap for burgers. People were wondering if the owner, Al Templeton, actually used real beef, or did he substitute for another type of meat like cat meat or dog meat or whatever that is. And so nobody actually goes to this local diner except from Jake Epping because of those rumors and those speculations going around. Because of that, between Jake and Al, they had this kind of not close relationship, but at least close acquaintance with one another. One day, Jack received a call from Al, and Al told Jake that he needed Jake to come meet him like immediately. It's like very urgent issues, whatever that is. And so they talked, and apparently Jake found out that in the pantry at the back of the diner, there is this very one spot that was very interesting where it let you time travel back to the summer of 1958. A very specific date. I don't remember what date it is. I just know that it's in the summer of 1958. It's always gonna be the same day. It's always gonna be the same time. It's gonna be, I think, 11:58 a.m. on that day. No matter how long you stay in the past, it's always when you get back to the present, it's always gonna be for 2 minutes. So you're always gonna be gone for 2 minutes, no matter if you spend like, I don't know, 40 years there or 20 years or whatever that is. Obviously, Jake, knowing all of that, and he actually experienced it for himself, was very intrigued and curious and wanted to know more. Al apparently told Jake to meet him at his house because there's more that Jake needed to know. And so they met up, they're talking. Al said that because of this pothole in the universe, or this portal that let you time travel back in 1958, Al's been thinking of changing the past. And they talk a lot about butterfly effect, how if it's even possible for you to change the past and have that affect the future or the present moment or not, would it be gonna be another consequences in place of that thing that you wanted to change? And Al wanted Jake to apparently go on his last mission of trying to save John F. Kennedy from his assassination. And the reason why Al could not go and do it himself was because he was diagnosed with lung cancer, I think stage 4. Very serious lung cancer. He has like days, not even weeks, days before he passes away, I think. He's kind of this relaying and retelling all of these whole situation to Jake in the hopes of that Jake could go do the things that he would have done if he didn't have cancer. So far, that's where I'm at. Jake has not made a decision to whether or not he would do that for out or not, what I said from the last clip still stands. I feel like he uses a lot of references to the point that I don't understand what it's saying most of the time. That sounds very bad, but I get where the story is going. I understand the basic premise of who's doing what, what's happening, what's the objective, but the miscellaneous details, the detailed descriptions of whether the feelings or the character development, the cherry on top details, if you will. He doesn't use a lot of metaphor and similes like what I would normally am familiar with. He uses phrases, he uses references to pop culture, he uses lots of names and to history even that is not very commonly understood by me. So that made me a little bit confused at some point and my head kind of hurts from reading this book. So that was an interesting reading experience and I am intrigued to, obviously, I am that much in and not even a quarter into the book, but I'm excited. It's actually flying through because everything is printed so big that I could just, flip page after page after page. Makes the experience less intimidating, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'll check back in a second. I think after I get to page 250, I will talk to you again. Okay guys, it's time for an update in terms of Stephen King's 11/22/63. I am on page 295, so I am that much into the book and I still have a big chunk to go. The things that I said in previous clips still apply and I still believe what I said just because I did have a very hard time reading this book, at least getting to the point that I'm at in the book. And the way that Stephen King writes, it's for me at least, all of the references that he uses. I know that this is America in I think the 1950s and I am not around then, obviously. I'm not even from the States to begin with, so that just adds another level of difficulty in comprehending what's going on. I mean, the references don't affect the whether or not you're gonna understand what's going on in terms of the plot lines and the stories and the series of events that are happening. It's just that I felt like I could not immerse and fully immerse in the setting of America in 1950s, and I could not imagine, for example, what the scenery looked like, how the roads looked like, how the houses looked like, the neighborhood. But our main protagonist, Jake Epping, successfully time traveled back to America in 1958, and he is on his quest to try to change the past in terms of helping save one of his students in his English class from being physically abused and literally affected by one of the tragic events that happened to his family. We follow him in trying to settle in, trying to go around and ask people about this friend of his name is Harry Dunning. He knew that Harry lived in the town called Derry, and one thing that Jake noticed when he got to this town, Derry, is that everybody was not necessarily very welcoming and very friendly to him, and everybody was just like looking him up and down, wondering where he came from, who he was, and even when he asked for information, people were not willing to give information to him. He had to change his hairstyle, change his clothing, change his even wallet, change his accent and the way he talked to even blend in and not cause any suspicion. And so that's where the story is going, and obviously he successfully altered that past event, and when he came back to the present moment of 2011, he experienced this butterfly effect because this Harry Dunning, this friend of his, I think something happened in terms of his leg that left him not being able to walk properly, and then that's how Harry ended up in Jake Epping's class. He became the janitor at the school that Jake Epping taught at, and that's how they kind of become acquainted with one another. Harry Dunning wrote in one of his essays, one of his assignments, about this very tragic event that happened, and he wrote it in a way that's very primitive and very primal and very real, and evoked some sort of emotions in Jake Epping that made him give Harry an A+. That's the first A+ in any sort of tests and assignments and homeworks that Harry ever got. And so that's how they were brought together. Jake ended up attending Harry's graduation ceremony, and both of them went to Al Templeton's. Remember Al? So Jake Epping and Harry Dunning, they went to Al Templeton's diner to eat this one last farewell meal between them, and then they had their photos taken there as a kind of a tribute, a token for Harry's graduation. That's the context. So after Jake time travel back and forth, he successfully altered this past event and he came back to the present, and he noticed that the picture of him and Harry taken at Harry's graduation that usually was hung on the walls of Al's diner now disappeared. That means that because of that event that Jake successfully altered and changed, that was one of these butterfly effects leading to where Harry Dunning did not even go to the state that Jake Eppin taught at anymore. He didn't even attend Jake classes or whatever. And so in this present moment, after the alteration, Jake and Harry did not even know of each other. So that's how things are going to me. Jake's gonna make another mission back in time and try to change the JFK assassinations now. But we still have a long ride, like I mentioned, because it's set in, the JFK assassination. That makes it very, very environmental driven and setting driven, if that makes sense. Maybe other works of his are a lot more plot driven. Then I would be intrigued to see other books of him and give them a try. But for now, I'm not enjoying it. I mean, I am intrigued. It keeps me on my toes and keeps me turning page after page, but I zone out. The goal for tonight will be to get to page 350. Hopefully I can do it. It took me a long time to get to even page 250. So let's see if we can get to page 350 today. But yeah, after that, I will be taking a break. And then hopefully tomorrow we can get to page 500. That's going to be a big number, but we'll see if I can do it. I'll give you an update later. But in the meantime, I'm going to read and update in a second. I just got to a point that I'm like, I did not see that coming at all. At first I thought the protagonist, the male character, was a good person, but now it turns out he's morally gray. That's interesting. Don't know where this is going. I mean, I just told you that I was looking for character development, but this is not the type of character development that I was expecting. But anyway, I digress. I will be reading for now and maybe getting up to 350 page number wise, and then we'll talk tomorrow morning. But that was crazy. That was like unprecedented. But I mean, I understood where he's coming from, but still that did not justify what he did. So okay guys, a bit of a catch up and a rant, if you will. I just got back home from attending the graduation ceremony. Not for me, but for the class that's before me. So like class of 2025 at my college. And I just had a lot of thoughts that I wanted to maybe put it out into the universe to see if anybody else feels like this. I mean, attending the event, not even attending fully. I was just there for like an hour and I decided that it was too much, and then I just had to go back to my duplex. I was hoping to find the senior of mine that I want to congratulate her on her graduation, but I just could not find her anywhere for the life of me. So I just was like, okay, I'm gonna text her later. I gifted her graduation gift before today already, so everything is settled. But I just had a lot of thoughts in terms of feeling like, I don't know, I'm a bit worried for my own graduation next year. I'm a rising senior, isolation, and what to do. My parents are not going to be coming to the United States to attend my graduation. Hopefully they're going to be able to stay up to watch my live of the graduation ceremony and everything, but that means that they're not going to be seeing me directly in person when I receive my bachelor degrees and just when I graduate. And as I was walking around the field and seeing people with, their family around, I felt a bit lonely, you know what I mean? And I don't know, I'm not the person who has a lot of close friends. I live like half the world away from home and from all of my friends. To be honest, I just had a couple friends, but they're not even that close. And I know that on that day, everybody's gonna try to be very welcoming and, very accepting, if that makes sense, towards me and other graduates. I don't know how to feel. I don't know what to do. And I don't know what to do. It's just like lots of feelings. And last year, I didn't attend the graduation for class of 2024 because in my head, that was like 2 years from when I would graduate. So it did not click in my head. But this year somehow it was like wild because some of my friends who were graduating early. That's just like such a weird feeling. Me and my boyfriend were just talking last night about how bizarre it felt to almost be a rising senior, not almost. This 4 years of college just like went by like a blink of an eye. It was like yesterday that I came to America knowing nothing and was anxious and all of those hardships, right? But then 4 years later, here I am. But then I'm about to leave this place that I feel so accustomed to and then move to another place and start over. Next year, on my graduation day, it's gonna be my day. So on one hand, I can get to do whatever I want. If I feel like I'm overwhelmed, then I could call it early. You know what I mean? But is that the point of graduation? And I mean, I could sit around and just look and take everything in because everything was just happening so fast. But then I feel like I'm not doing enough. So anybody else feels like that, where you don't know what to do in your graduation? And I mean, I still have a year to go, but still, I feel like that's gonna be like a blink of an eye and I will be graduating literally tomorrow. But so, it's so weird. I was like watching the live stream today of their ceremony commencement, and I told my boyfriend that prior to watching that live stream, another fear of mine in terms of graduating was I was terrified of walking across the stage. And imagine as you walk and you're graduating and nobody claps, nobody yells, nobody screams, nobody claps. It's just complete silence. That's just the biggest fear of mine in terms of graduating. But after watching that live stream, I saw that everybody had at least a round of applause. And obviously it's not going to be like the loudest every time, but still they had some praise. And that just reassured me that I'm not going to be there standing up the stage in complete silence and nobody is screaming, clapping, whatever. So now that I feel a little bit more easy in terms of that. But then I was walking around, I see so many people with their families going from Vietnam to America, and I feel like, okay, my parents not gonna be here next year to see me graduate, and that's just a lot. Sucks to not have your parents see you graduate and everything. Yeah, they're never gonna see me graduate ever again, right? I mean, if I am to pursue a PhD, then I might graduate, but I don't feel like it's the same. In my boyfriend's parents and family will be coming to the United States feels a little bit more reassuring, but at the same time, it's not my family. And so they also have their own little separation time. I guess I'm just afraid to be alone on my graduation day. That's the short answer. 21 is a big year. I'm turning 21 in like not even a month. Some existential crisis just hitting me at this moment. It's nice to have that separation between you and your parents and your family, but at the same time, it's like, it sucks. So yeah, that's my little rant. It's very not fitting and not on theme with the reading vlog, but it's just that life acts in weird ways. But on that note, I got to page almost 400 of 11/22/63, and I think I could get to page 500 tonight. It was just like getting harder, in my opinion, to read. That previously at around like 300-ish or 360-ish, I was debating of DNFing this book just because I was like, I did not understand what's going on and I just could not picture the scene and the setting. But then I persevered and I got to almost page 400. So I'll catch you maybe tonight and then we can talk. But okay, I guess Jake Epping is not as bad as I thought, but I feel like he has some goodness inside of him. I appreciate the depth and the layeredness of the character development and the character personality, so I've been enjoying that. I feel like I'm enjoying this part of the story more than the previous parts that I read about Jake Epping. I feel like I learned more about him as a person. His characters are starting to show. So yeah, that's the update. I am on page 403 now, a little bit over 400 pages. It's actually going very great. I figured that I needed to be in complete silence when reading this book, with no sound, no distraction around, with nobody talking, just so that I could actually understand what's going on. That's what I've been doing, like separate myself from the outside world and just sit and then read in complete silence. So that's been helping, and then I'll catch you in a second. Hey guys, it's time for our reading update. I have arrived at page 520. I did a little bit more reading than the last clip that I just showed you. Let's talk about 11/22/63. It has gotten a lot better, in my opinion, capturing my attention, and I feel a lot easier to immerse in the story now, just because I feel like the pace is starting to pick up and I'm starting to see where this is going. And also it helps because Jake Epping starts to build connections and attachments to the past. He recently moved to a town called Jody. It is, I think, near Dallas, but not too close to Dallas. When Jake got to Dallas, he found that he did not like Dallas, and he found the people to be pretty unfriendly and rude even and mean, and so he didn't like that environment, and he decided to move out to another town called Jody. Like I mentioned, I think it's an hour from Dallas, and so he could live in Jody, and he then commuted to Dallas in between the week and the weekends to do his research on this assassination that he tried to avert. When he came to Jody, this is one of the towns that I feel like Jake is starting to build connections with and even settle down and really grows attached to the people there, the town there. He starts to fall in love again. He met up with one of his fellow colleagues at the high school that he became a full-time English professor at, and then he started to grow very close to the tradition there with the different baseball games, footballs and everything. Started to really enjoy and like the kids' company. He even directed 1 or 2 plays at the school for the musical theater and everything, and it was just like so wholesome seeing him change and having those two aspects of him when he was in Dallas or when he was all the way back in Derry versus him being in Jody. And those two versions of him are so starkly different from each other that I truly appreciate how multifaceted Stephen King makes his character to be. But I feel like the story is getting to the point that he wants to settle down in Jody, but he realizes that he cannot at the end of the day because he has another mission to complete, to do. So if he are to settle down and get married, have kids, get involved into this relationship or situationship, then he would bring danger and eventually endanger this person, this woman's safety and everything, and even messes up her life. And also because there's obviously things that he cannot fully reveal to her, and so he feels like there's somehow this division between them within their own relationship, no matter how hard he tries, and she's also aware of that. And so I feel like that's just so heartbreakingly beautiful, and I just feel for him. That's where I'm at. It's going pretty good, if I do say so myself, and I'm excited. I think I can get to page 600 tonight, and then we might get to page 750 tomorrow. I am doing another vlog, I think next week. I am doing a generator picks how much I read per day. I think that's gonna be a very interesting premise. I'm trying to spice things up and not just solely do a reading vlog where I just read and sit there and tell you things about what I'm reading. I think that could be interesting, but you know, I'm trying to diversify my content and also see what sticks. So that's what I'm doing tomorrow, and then hopefully we can get a bit of reading done and get to page 750, and then I can give you another update. I'm feeling a bit more ambitious with this book. I feel like, don't hold me to this, but I feel like I could finish this book by Wednesday. Today's Sunday, so I have like 3-ish day, and then if I finish it by Tuesday, that's even more ambitious. Then I could return this book along with the Pride and Prejudice annotated version to the library, and then I can start on the Reformatory and then completing other books on my TBR. But enough of that. I am going to sit here and read, and then I'll catch you tomorrow for another reading update. A bit of a reading update. I have been reading for the entire day. It's a very busy day to me because I have been moving in, moving out, and just picking up random stuff, doing some errands, if you will. And I got to page 672 of 11/22/63. The one thing that I'm doing is that this week I'm filming 2 videos. I'm filming the Stephen King vlog, and then the other video, which is like generator picks how many pages I read today. And spoiler alert, for the first day I picked 387 pages. That's the the maximum amount of page I've ever read, ever. So I'm excited to see if I can succeed or fail the mission. I am hoping to not fail on the first day ever of the challenge. So that means that I will be finishing this book today. And that's even more ambitious than I mentioned yesterday. A bit of an reading update. So far, there's a lot more politics involved. What Jake Epping, our main protagonist, has been doing for the last 200-ish pages have been to spy / stalk on this person who he think is the killer of John F. Kennedy. His name is Lee Oswald. Hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but this Lee guy. He is from Russia, but he just got back to America. Jake Epping has been following him around, living literally across from him, and he's just been setting up many different equipments, microphones in this Lee guy's house to spy on them, to listen to their conversation, because Jake Epping, he's still not sure if this Lee guy is the culprit of this assassination or is it another guy who's in very close proximity to this Lee guy. So he's still trying to rule out and eliminate the possibility of whether or not there are other confounding variables or whether or not this Lee guy is actually the person who's gonna make the shot. You know what I mean? So it's been a lot of that going back and forth, but also layered in between is, like I mentioned, this very complex relationship between Jake Epping and a girl named Sadie, and he's falling in love, but then he's trying to not get her entangled in this entire mess. So he broke up with her, but then in the recent events, in the recent chapters, they got back together. It's very interesting seeing, and I don't even know how this is going to turn out or whether or not their relationship is going to work. And I wonder if after the alteration of this assassination, if Jake could ever change that past, then would they stay together, or if there's gonna be another butterfly effect to separate them. This entire notion of no matter how long you stay in the past, it's always gonna be 2 minutes in the present moment of 2011. That idea is mind-boggling to me, because I cannot for the life of me figure out how that works and how is that gonna make sense. You know what I mean? Even if Jake Epping decides to stay, quote unquote, in this past of 1958, it's only gonna be 2 minutes, no? That means that time's gonna stay still? What if he never comes back? I wonder how this is gonna go, but that's my rabbit hole. Okay, a bit of an update on this book. I am on page 860. So I am making my way through slow and steady, although not so slow because I had to read a ton of pages today, but that's for another vlog. So I thought I would update you on what's going on before I dive into this last bit of the book. I do need to get to page 987 today, so I will not be finishing this book tonight as of now. I don't think I could do that. My brain is it's not there yet, but I will be finishing this book tomorrow morning. Okay, so things took a very unexpected, although expected turn. So we're getting closer and closer to the D-Day. First of all, the book has changed the format, and every chapter, or at least every chunk, starts with kind of naming of the date like this. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see that. So it's kind of counting down to 11/22/63. So I now know what that means. It's the date. I thought it was some sort of a code, like the Da Vinci Code or whatever, but now I know that's the date that JFK was assassinated, and I will be imprinting that in my head forever and forever always. That's one thing that I learned in terms of history from reading this book, so that's good. I do want to be very honest and confess something, because the pace is picking up and things are just happening very rapidly. I don't read every single word on the page. I was just like skimming through very fast, especially in their action scenes and stuff like that. And also another thing, I noticed that people have been saying that this is a horror, but I don't see any horror in this. It's not scary, in my opinion. It's definitely gruesome when Jake Epping goes around killing people who he thought need to be killed. That's the only part that gets gruesome. Although I would say that the first story, so there are two events or multiple events. The first event that he tried to change, that was the most gruesome part of the entire thing as of now, up until this point. And then our two main characters, the couple in the story, they are planning to go back to the present moment as of 2011 after Jake finishes in changing this past event of this assassination. And so there's that. Second, he was able to narrow down who was the actual culprit. He went down the rabbit hole. It took a bit of beating and being beaten up for him to do that, but he did that. Third, in terms of beating, he was beaten up because you know how like because he had the memory of the present, but in the past, that's the future. So he was able to use that memory of his to go place bets on football games, basketball game, even wrestling, whatever, baseball, and he got into trouble because of that. That's something that was like, okay, so he's not the almighty, you know, everything capable, know-it-all main character. He's not like that, although he's from the future. And that's one thing that's like unique about this story is that the past does not want to be changed. And so it tries to fight back, it tries to resist, and that theme repeats throughout the entire thing. Stephen King is very good at having multiple layers. I feel like this is very masterful in the sense of House of Leaves. I know they're very completely different stories, but I cannot help but think of House of Leaves when I'm reading this book just because of the complexity and the many layers that there is in this story. I still think there are some similarities between them two, and so like multiple narratives going on, although the other thing was just a spatial narrative and a spatial division. This is more of a temporal, you know, the time division between the past, present, and future thing. So it was a very interesting notion that I caught. So yeah, that's enough of talking and chatting and updating you guys on what's going on. I'm not gonna say anything else, or else I'm gonna spoil stuff. So it's not gonna be a spoiler free, but I don't think I've spoiled everything. So even if you watch this video, you can still read the book and, you know, experience for yourself. So yeah, I'm gonna read. Hopefully we can get to page 987, and then I'll catch you very late in the evening, and then we can talk. And then I'll definitely be finishing this book tomorrow. I'm done with 11/22/63, and that was a ride. That was definitely a ride. Oh my god, I loved their story. Jake and Sadie's. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but it was beautiful. But I just wish, you know, it would have turned out a little bit better in terms of making them a couple. Let me set you down and then we can talk more in terms of ratings. Okay guys, I finished 11/22/63. And I enjoyed the ending. I really do. And I understand why Jake decided to do what he did in the end. He just could not resist time traveling the one last time to meet Sadie and potentially make her fall in love with him. But long story short, he did change the JFK assassinations. After that, he went back to the future of 2011 to realize that the world is obviously changed as well following that alteration, and not necessarily for the better. Because of that, he was like, did I do something wrong? Was it the right decision to go back and change that? Changing something so big like the JFK assassination will leave such a big butterfly effect on the future. The way it ends, it touched me. It was so touching and heartwarming. I wish that they would have become a couple and had their own like happy ever after, but that was not the case. So I was a bit sad. But then from reading this book, I realized one thing is that everything happens for a reason. And even though sometimes there are events that now looking back, I was like, I regret doing that. But if there was not that event or multiple bad events, I would not have become the person I am today. In your head, you can think that, oh, that's if I could change that event, then my life would have been better. But no. You know, your life would have been completely different, not even for better, usually for worse, because the past doesn't like to be changed. As I've learned from this book, I don't know, it just relieves something in terms of holding on to the past and always having to feel like you're stuck in the past and having to always think back of what if I changed that event, what if I did not study abroad, for example, but there's no what if. Obviously, it was a lot of action and lots of gruesome events and gruesome details that were being mentioned, but at the end, after finishing this book, what remains and what I am left with is this wholesome feeling of appreciation for the future, but also even more for the present. Really giving myself that grace and giving other people that grace, because most of the time we don't know what we're doing, and I could look at somebody's life and I regret that they did a certain event or they did a certain action or behavior. I shouldn't do that, you know what I mean? Because if they didn't do that, then they wouldn't have become the person that they are today. That's just a very philosophical thing that I realized, and it's just that it's great. That being said, I don't think this is a 5-star for me. I think it is definitely a solid 4-star, but I'm debating between 4.25 and 4.5. Yeah, it was a fun time reading this book. I feel like after reading this book, I learned a lot about America in 1958. But yeah, so 4-ish, 4.5-ish rating. It's my first Stephen King's book, so I'm definitely intrigued to test out other novels of his. This is, I think, one of the lightest novel that he's written in terms of gruesome and horror aspect. Like I mentioned, I did not even realize there's a horror aspect in this. I'm gonna leave you at that. It's a very, very beautiful story, and I love them. I love them a lot. I would recommend, but be prepared to go in for a ride and be prepared to be confused, to sad, to feel like your heart's gonna explode because lots of actions going on. Be prepared to also feel like you have to step away from the book because of the gruesome details. Be prepared to experience life and how it was like in America in 1958 and the leading up to John F. Kennedy's assassinations. There we go. I'm gonna leave you at that. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy me reading my first Stephen King's novel. I hope it's gonna be a decent sized vlog. I think it is. But yeah, let me know if you've read this book or if you want to read this book. I would definitely recommend it. But yeah, let me know if you're interested, what you're reading, and I'll see you in the next video very soon. But until then, bye bye!